Welcome to Helping Organizations Thrive. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Joseph Saheb Youssef, who's on the show today. He's in Singapore, and he's just gone 11 o'clock in the evening there, so I really appreciate his time. So welcome, Joseph.
It's an absolute pleasure, Julian, and thank you so much for having me on as a guest on the show. And yes, we are live. I'm just checking on my phone just to make sure everything's working as planned. Yeah. So great to be on the show, mate. I've been we've been connected for a little while, and you've been having some really insightful conversations with people from around the world, especially during this time with regards to business and transformation, and how businesses need to do certain things a bit differently, perhaps in this day and age. So awesome. I'm looking forward to it, man.
No, I really appreciate that. I'll just tell the audience, some may not be on LinkedIn, some may hear this on the podcast, just of who you are. Obviously, you're the Director of Sales Marketing of CreateTheEdge, and you have a mission to help individuals and businesses just to create that edge for themselves. You also host a live show like this as well called CreateTheEdge. You're an advisor, an investment advisor, a fine art consultant, and a global goodwill ambassador. So many expertise there, and breadth of knowledge and insight. So the first question I'd just like to ask really is just so people get to know you a little bit more. I mean, I'm sure many people do know you with all what you post on LinkedIn and how you share, and you're very much open and transparent, which is great. Is what you love about what you do?
Great question. I think I'll go a little bit into my background. So I mean, in school, or rather in senior school, I was a through and through science student. So physics, chemistry, computers, etc. I was meant to go into robotics and mechatronical engineering for my bachelor's, but it turned out to I went into finance and accounting back in Melbourne. That is so. I had a complete change of career. A trajectory, so to speak. However, I've never actually, even though I'm a trained CPA, I never actually worked in an accounts receivable or an accounts payable position within a financial institution, interestingly enough. But I've always worked within, or rather, the majority of my career has been in the financial services industry. Mm-hmm. However, I've always had this, focus of being able to, be in front of people, deal with people. I love being with people. So I've always been in a relationship-focused, strategy-focused, marketing-focused roles. So I've been an individual contributor. I've been, I've led teams of up to 300 people across Australia at one point, multi-jurisdictional, multi-country teams as well. I would say the thing that I'm most passionate about what I do is basically dealing with people, because you learn something new every single day with whoever you are dealing with, whoever you're working with. There are little parts of them that you imbibe within yourself and you learn. And, that's the thing about, leadership. That's the thing about management. That's the thing about, self-actualization, is that you actually imbibe those little things and you learn and grow from every single experience that you have, through life. So I'd say the thing that I'm really passionate about, whatever I do, because in essence, I'm a management consultant, who focuses on go-to-market strategies for companies. I do have a full-time job. However, I do consulting work for companies from around the world. But, I focus mainly on the sales, business development, and strategy side of things. And also looking into the corporate branding elements to make sure that, the marketing message is actually hitting the right audience in the right manner. So that's what I essentially do. So I go in, I deal directly with the C-suite. And sit down with them to understand their real mission, vision, and their purpose, and make sure that their actions, whether it be their marketing strategy, their branding strategy, their sales and business development divisions, etc., is aligned to all of that. So that's what I do in essence, but it's all very people-centric. It's a business of the heart, mate. So, the emotional connection that one needs to have with their employees as well as their clients and consumers is essential, right? In today's world, especially.
And obviously, observing you through LinkedIn, I know that's a virtual thing, but I do see you occasionally in the real world of virtually still, but moving, not animated, as it were. I see that people side of you, and clearly it's the first thing you said about people. I think you've said it. You must have said it multiple times in that conversation we just had then. And you know, people matter, and you know, as much as you have strategies and you have a mission and a purpose, all these sort of things. And we always know, and I've said it before, where people say, you know, that, you know, our greatest assets are our people.
Spot on.
And the thing is, I sometimes struggle with, I don't always think organizations, and I've been in organizations where they may say that, but in reality, they're not really doing that. Because at the moment, it's certainly about people, because people are the ones who are, you know, being having the agility, the ones that come up with the ideas, the ones all doing the hard work and flipping. So how do we get that sort of connection and in organizations? Because part of thriving is enabling your people to thrive. How do we get that connection of, yes, they are really your asset? How do we get senior, I guess, board members to really get the penny drop in a real deep way that says, yes, I need to invest in my people, especially at this time?
See, that's a very interesting question. I'm going to give you a little bit of a different perspective on it, or a different take, because, you know, I've had the opportunity to, you know, working with the C-suite in two completely different organizational as well as country cultures, you know, per se. My career started in Australia, where I was for 11 years, predominantly based out of Melbourne. And the company culture there is very different to the company culture here in Singapore. Let's put it that way. I mean, even though it's like, you know, just a 2-hour sort of a time difference, so to speak, you know, from Melbourne to Sydney, to Singapore, there is a huge difference. And I think, you know, from what I've noticed, that the organizational culture, the leadership culture, especially in Australia, is more of an open culture where basically, you know, your team members are more, you know, they're basically, you know, they are encouraged to come up. You know, there is more of an open door policy. They're more encouraged to come up and speak their views and their opinions. And, you know, they are not sort of shunted down and being like,
is that an Australian sort of speaking forth your mind and being quite upfront, or
possibly,
right.
Or I would say it's something to do with perhaps the Western world, as we like to call it, as compared to the Asian culture. Now, obviously, the reason why I can actually talk about the Asian culture is because I'm Asian, right? You know, so I'm not being racist or any kind of, you know, things along those lines. So, I mean, I'm originally from India. I was born in India, spent the first 17 years of my life in India. So, I mean, the Asian culture is very hierarchical, if that makes sense, especially in a corporate environment. And this is something which I have, even though I've not worked in a corporate environment in India, I've obviously worked in a corporate environment in Singapore. And, you know, the thing which I've noticed, which is very, very different, is like, you know, out here, people hesitate to basically share their views, their real opinions with their senior decision makers. And I'm not talking about your immediate line manager. I'm talking about your director level, you know, people, or your VPs, etc. There is a hesitancy which people have to speak up, even at board meetings, even at you know, company meetings, etc. When people are asked, you know, tell us what you think, they're very hesitant to speak up here. So I don't know. It's more of like a hierarchical culture, in my opinion, perhaps in the Asian subset or in mindset, which I have noticed here in Singapore. So, in my opinion, to get back to your question which you asked, in my opinion, I think what leaders should do, especially during this time where you know, the world is basically in this digital bubble, as I like to call it, and you know, everyone, you know, so many industries, so many companies which never thought that they could have people actually working, you know, from a remote location on their stuff, are basically understanding that it is absolutely possible, right?
Yes.
So the thing that leaders need to do at this present moment is have more of an empathetic quality towards their, you know, towards their staff. And not just being empathetic, but also, I think the most important thing a lot of people talk about is equality. In my opinion, equality is not as essential as equitability. So I mean, leaders need to be more equitable in the way they actually treat their staff. Now, what do I mean by that? You will see that most leaders in every organization, they will celebrate those who are the front runners, right? But they will not sort of pull up those who have the potential but who have not yet proven themselves. And that's where I think moving forward in this new league of leadership in the future, more and more people need to actually, or more and more leaders need to bring up those people, need to be able to understand the potential that certain people have, need to be able to recognize people a little bit better. And that's where I think, empathy makes a huge difference. You need to be able to read people to be a good leader. In my opinion, I mean, this is something which I had a bit of a conversation with Julian a couple of days ago with a friend. Like, especially if you're in the C-suite, if you're in a senior management position, you really don't need to know so much about the technical things because you're never actually doing it yourself. You've got teams doing it. The main thing about being a senior leader, and in my opinion, that is the most important element of leadership, is how good you are at delegating responsibility to your team and how good of a people leader you are. Now, people who might be listening into this on this LinkedIn Live, as well as perhaps on the recorded podcast later on, they might be thinking I'm quoting Jack Ma. But think about it. A good leader is not someone, who knows everything. It's more of someone who gets everyone to work in harmony because they are good managers, people managers. They look after their employees, morale, etc. And that is, in my opinion, the most important aspect. Make sure you have an open door policy. Make sure that you are empathetic towards your staff. Make sure that you trust your staff. I mean, you've hired them for a reason, right? So place your trust in them. You don't micromanage them. Let them prove their worth. Give them that empowerment. Empower them to do what you have hired them to do. There's no point in paying someone if you're standing over them all the time, trying to understand and trying to determine each and every step that they take along the way, right? So if you don't empower your your staff, you're not a leader, in my opinion. You're just a manager, and and people will never respect you. So
and it's interesting, all what you've said there. It goes back that leaders need to be very people focused, people aware, and demonstrating that empathy. Having incredible self-awareness. I coach C-suite and senior leaders, and one of the biggest things I try and help them with is getting comfortable with themselves, making them aware of themselves, but then being incredibly aware as they reflect on situations and becoming quite reflective. Because obviously we make things not perfect every time, and that when I always get them to go back on situations and how they could do it differently, better, and have that reflective approach where you then create that learning journey and be a continuous learner. And it goes back to the people. As you say, when you become a C-suite, a sort of VP, you're not needed to be knowledgeable of the technical specifics side of things. You're there to inspire, give them a vision, and empower them. And it's interesting that all of these are there's a trust thing going on here. And I was just fascinated how when the whole lockdown certainly in the UK, I've been working with organizations and have worked in organizations where the whole flexible working thing was sort of done a little bit and not quite there. And there's always an excuse of, we can't get everybody working from home, can't do this. But it was more of a trust thing in a lot of organizations, I think. And it's interesting. I spoke to some companies that within a weekend had got everybody home. So they could do it because they needed to do it. But what they found is then, and obviously there's a challenge, obviously, some people's certain mental health, obviously being completely isolated. But in terms of the productivity and working, it actually did work and created a a better way of interacting and creating freedom for people and flexibility. And actually they got more done and more efficient and more ideas. And actually some people thrive more than others in those situations. But it goes back to that trust. And it's, it's having that trust and empowering ability where you go, I'm allowing you, but you know what? It's okay if you fail. And because failure is okay. And this is where, I guess, as a leader, you need to be also in that context where you're putting yourself in the unknown, where you may fail as well. Because as a leader, you've got to lead by example. So if you're allowing other people to fail or allowed to fail, you should be in that position that actually I'm failing as well, or willing to fail, because I want to stretch the boundaries of my personal development or this company. Brené Brown talks about courage, doesn't she? About stepping into the arena, and with that mindset of literally, you don't know. And we're in a time where I've talked to many leaders who feel almost scared to say, I don't know. And I said, do you know what? It's okay. You don't know the way forward, because none of us have been in this situation before.
Spot on.
And
Spot on. I mean, each and every rule in the leadership or the management rule book has been literally ripped apart and thrown out the window, right? I mean,
yeah. So people are, and I say it's good to almost say to people, we're still going in this direction, but I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do this. And then you galvanize teams, you work together, and you become innovative, more creative, more releasing, and then starts to, and you create that sort of more mindset of thriving and allowing failure, but using that as almost, I never say the word failure, I say it's more just feedback. It's all it is. You just need to just change something. So, I mean, what other conversations are you having with leaders at this time to try and get them into that place of helping them to navigate this unknown, as it were?
Well, I think the main thing that most leaders, who are in charge of teams are facing at this present moment is basically being able to have that trust in their team that you mentioned, right? How not to be like a micromanager, so to speak, and that's one of the main elements, in my opinion. The other element is, like, I think what most leaders are missing out on is the required communication skills. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, if you're a leader or if you're a manager in a particular company, you obviously have some kind of communication skills, which has also obviously got you to that position. However, when you've got your teams, in a virtual environment, you need to be more aware of a lot of little things like, facial tics, body language, etc., to make sure that when you're on a Zoom call with them, that you've actually got their attention, and along those lines. And, little things along the lines of, looking at the camera when you're talking, just to maintain that eye contact, along the lines of also, hand gestures, etc. These are little communication tactics which I think leaders should use moving forward. And that's something which a lot of leaders are, in my opinion, failing in at this present moment, because they are not used to being on camera, if you know what I mean. So there's a sense of fear, this sense of judgment that am I looking okay or whatever. No, just be yourself.
Exactly.
Go out in front of your team. You are in front of your team. You're not in front of like unknown people. You're in front of people who you are with in general, or you were with at least 6 months ago, right? In the same vicinity. But I think communication and being able to effectively communicate elements is something which a lot of leaders are struggling with, in my opinion, at this present moment. At least based on the companies that I do consult with, which I'm seeing. Especially the C-suite. The other element as well.
I think that visibility, do they see the value in that, or they just but they just can't seem to get in a place to execute on it, or they don't see the value in it? What's the sort of roadblock in their minds, really?
See, the main thing is, I think most leaders, especially who are of the slightly older generation, they're used to doing things certain ways. And I think that's where adaptability becomes a huge element in leadership. Like, you have to be adaptable in your approach based on the circumstances that are presented in front of you, right? So, I mean, a lot of people are like, they still believe that, just sending through like a group email to your entire team will have the same effect of having a 10-minute or a 15-minute like a group Zoom call, right? In my opinion, showing your face just proves that you care, that you are there, you're present in the moment, you're down in the trenches with your team as well.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's sort of doing it hard in some way or the other. I mean, whichever industry you're in, there are situations in your present existence which are definitely not up to as to what you'd ideally like it to be. Yeah. So everyone's doing it hard. So have that courage to come to your team, and this is to answer that question. I think a lot of leaders are missing out on that, and they are basically like, I'm just going to do it the old way, send through like a memo circular via email and hope it works. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have the same effect of you getting on screen with them, talking to them, asking them how their day has been. I mean, you were able to do that prior when you were in the same office location, but not anymore, right? So you need to have that courage to face your team in their eye, ask them how they are. And that's what, people will do. They will go out of their way for those they respect. And, leaders who do that, they stand head and shoulders above the rest, in my opinion. So, respect is a two-way street. Trust is a two-way street. You can't expect your employees to give it their best if you do not have their best interests at heart, right? Yeah. And, as a leader, you need to be there in the moment, present with them, as I said, in the trenches, so to speak, to show them that, this is a leader who actually cares. This is a leader who is actually there for us every step of the way. This is a leader who empathizes with what we are going through and is there with us.
And it goes back to that point of, it doesn't matter if you're not the best at it at the start, you feel uncomfortable, slightly awkward, but at least do it. And I think that's where I've encouraged a lot of leaders, where I said, you know what, I always say, think about how did you become visible and present in your office? And often people used to sort of walk the floor and in a nice, not in a hierarchical way, just wander around, chat to people, how their weekend was. And I just said, well, how can you do that in a way that's similar, that you're being present and visible? Think of your direct reports, think of those below your direct reports, and how the way to interact. It can be a Zoom call, it can be a more of a town hall time Zoom call, where there's a bit more of it could be a Q&A, it could be, it could be a FaceTime call. There's obviously the facial thing, and sometimes it could just be a normal phone call as well. I'm just trying to create that sort of interaction.
Precisely.
And it's just thinking of ways, what's appropriate for the person, for what you're trying to communicate, and how best it will have the greatest impact. And I say, if you feel uncomfortable with it, just have a go. We've all, and I've noticed in the last 6 months, more and more people are more comfortable looking at a screen on Zoom because we've had forced to do it.
We've gotten used to it, right? It's repetition, mate. Repetition.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
You keep doing things, over and over again, and it just becomes part of your lifestyle. So, I mean, interesting. You said something really, really interesting, Julian. Like, the company which I work for here in Singapore. So we normally have this weekly catch up on a Friday, right? At 4 o'clock between. At 4 o'clock, the CEO, the managing director, the department heads, the sales guys, everyone, we are on a Zoom call together, and we all of us need to have a drink in front of us, whether it be a beer or a wine, or it could even be water, right? But it's just like that social camaraderie which we're trying to sort of have once again, like that sense of togetherness, that we're all together in the same place, and that is what a team is all about, right? Yeah. You need everyone to be pulling in the same direction, and you need everyone to be on board with the same kind of mindset, with the same kind of effort that they put in whatever they do. So these are little things, in my opinion, that leaders can do to basically engage their staff. You don't have to have employee recognition benefits and stuff. No, you just have to give them the opportunity to see you as the person who you are. Exactly. And that's what people resonate with. People resonate with the real you. People resonate with who you are as a person. And that's the same. That's just personal branding. which has gone into corporate branding at this present moment, which ultimately goes into the consumer experience part of things as well.
Yeah, and it's also listening. I found people went a little bit, the early days, Zoom mad. And I used to have some clients who'd say, let's jump on Zoom. I'm thinking, we're going to have a phone call. I mean, we didn't do Zoom before. And it's fine. I'm no issue with it at all. And it's like, people just need to engage their brains a little bit. Because I had a client who was doing a daily update. They called it a social update with their team at, I think it was at midday. And it was just to talk about socially, nothing to do with projects, nothing to do with work. And she's, oh, everybody keeps turning up now and all this. And I just asked the question of possibly, is it sort of, as the season passed, it was probably relevant in the early days to keep that. And I said, how else could you do it? And she just didn't, at first she went, well, I could ask what they want. I said, yeah, that's a really good answer. I said, rather than me telling her what to do, she was telling me what, and then she would go ask her team, what do you think we should do to try and keep this? And I think it became more of a weekly thing, and it became more of a Friday, like yourself, 4 or 5 o'clock, and we just have a beer or a glass or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it became very much, oh, that was a great week. What do you reckon? What are you guys doing the weekend? So it became a little bit more purposeful, and it wasn't every day in this sense of trying to create the water cooler conversation in a very forced way. It was almost like saying to everybody, right, all gather in the middle of the room, let's all have a chat. And I was looking at, what about? Well, just social things. And it's like, you wouldn't do that in the workplace. And I think we just need to be cognitive of trying to force things and just being mindful of the situation and what will be best. And I always get my clients thinking about, what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to do here? What is the best way of achieving that? Is it Zoom? Is it just a one-off, once a week, once a month, daily call, whatever it is, text? And just be cognitive of that. So we're listening, and it goes back to, we're living human beings, and we all have emotions, we all have stuff going on. Just be mindful of what's appropriate and what's right in that situation, and show that empathy. So we are circling back, which is fantastic, which is what it's all about, getting back to people. So any other thoughts in terms of, if you to sort of say to one thing that would really help right now to keep us in that sort of focus of not looking back? We're all about, we learn from the reflections of the past, but we look ahead, but obviously live in the moment. What sort of things would you say to a leader or to organizations right now?
Well, I think more and more organizations or senior leaders should work on their personal branding and their digital presence. So what I mean is like their social media presence, because personal branding is basically something which every single leader should concentrate on, right? Because people buy people. Simple as that. The know, like, and trust factor is because someone has engaged with someone from within your company, or someone who has had a good experience with your company, and that's the reasoning as to why they choose to be loyal to your brand. And that's just that heart connection, and that is so important. Just look at some of these people like Jack Ma, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, etc. Right? I mean, most of them are, their companies are known because of them, right?
Yes.
So their personal brand is bigger in essence than their corporate brand, quite literally. And that is what a lot of senior leaders need to work on. Intentionally, they really need to work on their own personal brand, because they need to have their brand out there so that so that they are the face of the company, quite literally. Like when people aren't able to leave their houses to go out and do retail shopping or whatever, right? They're just working on looking into it from the digital experience. Now the digital experience, they need to put a face to the brand. Now, if you've not worked in your personal branding as a senior leader of your organization, if your client who you're pitching your services to or products to, if they don't know who is the face of the brand per se, if you're not like a very well-known brand, I'm not talking about like the Nikes and all the household brands. No, I'm talking about your SMEs, etc. People will Google you. People will, or your company. What comes up? what is the thing? What is the reasoning as to why one person chooses one competitor over the other? It's because of the brand experience that they've had when they've interacted with someone from that company. Now, company X and company Y could have the exact same product, right? But the reason as to why a person chooses X over Y or Y over X is because that they've had more of a personal connection. The only way you can have a personal connection moving forward, especially in a digital bubble, is personal branding, especially for your senior leadership, especially for the people who are the face of the company. Let them go out, speak to people, express themselves, show who they are as a person, not just flogging their products and services, but showing people who they are, what they stand for, what their values in life are, right? So that people resonate with you at a personal level. And that's one of the main reasons, that's one of the main things, in my opinion, that leaders should work on moving forward as to how to get their personal branding on point.
Yeah, and it's like, so I was with a client yesterday who is very good is a very people person and very highly networked. But I would say, not of today's way of doing things. And obviously with what's happened with COVID has made it even more remote and digital. And I agree that becoming more the face of your organization, and it goes back to, sharing who you are, what you're about, the people side, and not about pushing products, not about pushing the services. It's just demonstrating it. And I know a lot of companies now are starting to do their own podcast, so they interview their own teams and technical people, and it creates a nice little dynamic. They probably don't get loads, probably just get their specific client to listen to, but it doesn't matter. It's a way of telling a story. I get approached to come on my podcast, people who are CEOs who are probably thinking, I need to upscale my personal branding, and therefore they're jumping on other podcasts, they're doing LinkedIn stuff. I totally agree with you. That's the way, and it's not about them promoting them per se. It's about them promoting them as a person that then represents this organization they work for, and hopefully the values will come across, and that will be the values that are in their business, and making sure that they are authentic, obviously clearly, as in there's a real integrity in that what they're sharing there exactly is within the company as well. That's a really good insight, and I know we talk a lot about personal branding, but I think a push to get senior leaders, because I think some people just think of it always those entrepreneurs, they're all doing the personal branding, they're out there trying to push their wares and tears, but actually for a senior leader, I think it's more important to do that in this day and age. And because we are in a digital way, people do just Google things and then start seeing things about this person, of this company, and think, wow, this is interesting, I like this. That's fascinating. Well, I really appreciate your time, Joseph. It'd be good just to tell people how people can get hold of you. I know you're pretty live.
I live on LinkedIn, mate. I live on LinkedIn quite literally. So I need to. I mean, I'm paying them rent, I guess. So so I pretty much live on LinkedIn. So please reach out to me. Via LinkedIn. Please feel free to follow me. Send me through a personalized connection request if you feel I might be able to assist you in any way with regards to marketing, branding, etc. Those are the things which I specifically focus on as a professional. So always happy to have a chat. Just if you'd like to just even chat about certain things that you are facing with regards to your organization. Always happy to lend a ear and basically give you some advice if that's something which I might be able to provide. So, but yeah, best way to reach me is definitely via LinkedIn. I do have other social media, but to be extremely honest, I may be logging into those. I'm talking about like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram maybe once a month. So yeah, but LinkedIn, I'm there every day, man. Every single day. So
it does appear that you live on LinkedIn, actually. Yes,
I do. Pretty much do.
Well, it's been a real delight, and I value your time and your inputs and your insights. It's been really good, and I'm sure this will be going to be a great episode that people are going to be listening to now. So yeah, thank you very much, Joseph.
My pleasure.